In this video, we'll be looking at Miles' costumes in Spider-Man 2. Unlike Peter, I haven't done a video for Miles' suits in his previous game, and I never will because most of Miles' costumes return for this game. Only a handful of suits don't return here, and only 2 of those are genuine losses. Before I start, let me just say that there is a link to a tier list maker in the description, so if you disagree with me, you can always make your own rankings. I guess I have to give a spoiler warning? I didn't give one for my video on Peter because it completely slipped my mind, but both characters have costumes that are relevant to the story. This video will also show footage of the final boss, so yeah, spoilers ahead. Before we start, I should let you know my feelings towards Miles as a character, since I really haven't discussed that on this channel and it does influence my opinion on his costumes at least a little bit. I've read all of Miles' comics written by his original creator, Brian Michael Bendis. In those books, Miles was one of the worst characters I've ever seen in any piece of fiction. The Spider-Verse movies fixed every issue I had of the comic version, and as a result, I really liked that version of Miles. I won't go into detail here for the sake of time, so watch Godzilla Mendoza's video on the topic that I've linked in the description, which shares many of the same feelings. The comics have now been writing Miles closer to his movie counterpart, and while I haven't read many of them, they seem to be pretty good. That leaves us with Insomniac's Miles, who is somewhere in the middle. He's okay, but kind of boring with a very cliche and sometimes annoying sense of humor. Because of that, I don't like him too much. Alright, let's get started by looking at Miles' classic suit. We're starting with this one because this is Miles' main suit. It's the one he's had in the comics since his debut over a decade ago. It's the one Miles had in his last game, and it's the suit most people think of when they hear Miles' name. This also means that this is the suit that all of Miles' other suits are measured against. Looking at Insomniac's interpretation of this suit, it's a very good adaptation. For the most part. The biggest issue I have with the suit is that I think it's a bit over-designed. There are thicker black armored pieces on the suit, most noticeably on his forearms and around his waist, and his shoes have a zipper on them. I don't think any of this needs to be here, but I understand why they did it. The suit is very simple in the comics, so they wanted to give it extra detail. More than that, the suit in the Insomniac Games was not designed to be a companion to Peter's classic suit. This suit was designed to accompany Peter's advanced suit. That's the suit this one was designed to stand next to, since that was the one Peter had in Miles' game. So I get it, I get why they added all this stuff. But man, I don't think it looks very good. I think the texture they gave the suit was all the additional detailing that they needed, maybe add a few seam lines here and there, and I think that would have been enough. Another thing with the suit is that the shade of black is really light. It's more of a dark gray. I've seen a lot of people cite this as an issue they have with the suit, and I acknowledge that this is a valid complaint. But I don't mind it, because I've actually never really liked the black and red color scheme of Miles' costume. It's such a dark and edgy color scheme that does not fit Miles as a character at all. I mean, look at this thing. If you turn Shadow the Hedgehog into a Spider-Man suit, it would more or less look like this. Other characters like Superior Spider-Man or Kane in his time as the Scarlet Spider had the same color scheme, and it made sense for them. Those guys are morally dubious on their best days, but Miles? Good-natured, kind-hearted, white-bread Miles? Not fitting. I've always thought that Miles should have a different color scheme that better fits him as a character, and his suit here, I think, partially does that. Now, I already know that a lot of people are going to be mad by what I've just said, probably say something like, "This guy's just making up problems." And let me just say, I think there are 2 reasons as to why Miles' color scheme has seemingly never bothered anybody else. The first is that it's a cool color scheme, so I'm sure a lot of people are willing to overlook Miles' personality, or lack thereof, and just enjoy the suit because it looks very cool. The second reason is that Miles' suit has very large, very round, very friendly eyes. Because of that, you can tell just from a glance that he's not a bad dude. Put those 2 things together and yeah, I can totally see how this costume's colors have never been an issue for anyone else. It's honestly not a huge issue for me either. If they had colored this suit with a proper black, I'd still like it. I just think it's a little weird, that's all. Looking at the suit's alternate colors, they're all bad. The only one that's halfway decent is this one, which makes the suit look more like Peter's costume. It falls apart for me with the back though. The logo being black makes it fade into the rest of the suit, and that doesn't look great. These recolors being as bad as they are is odd considering that Insomniac already made a good recolor for the suit in their previous game with the Uptown Pride suit. Why did it not return as one of this suit's suit styles? Overall, I'd give the suit an 8. It's a largely faithful rendition of a pretty good costume from the books, with only minor issues holding it back. Next up, we have the upgraded suit, which is Miles' default suit in this game. At a glance, you might not even tell that this is a different costume than Miles' classic one. There are many differences between these, but they're mostly very minor differences. The biggest changes are the design of Miles' hands, the big red line running down his arms, and finally, the suit is a darker black on the top of his body where the web pattern is. I like the suit. I think it's a good evolution of Miles' classic suit, and I think its level of detailing is more fitting. This one doesn't have the silly little zippers on the shoes. Really makes you wonder why they were there to begin with. For this suit's alternate styles, we have a pretty good one right off the bat. This style is clearly inspired by Peter's Advanced Suit 2.0, and I think it looks really cool. I've always thought that it was a good idea to give Miles' suits Peter's color scheme, and this one does that quite well. I wish Miles' classic suit had a style that looked like this. Style 2 sucks, and Style 3 would look good if it was more white. There's a lot of gray here, and it really busies up the suit, when I think it would look better if they kept it simple. I'd give the suit like an 8 or 9. It's really good, but it doesn't do anything that would wow me into giving it a 10. I think part of it is just that I don't love Miles that much as a character, so it's kind of harder for me to get excited about him. So now we're at the part of the video where we need to talk about the evolved suit. Everyone on the planet has already thoroughly trashed this thing. Looking at the average opinion online, it seems like most people think this suit is an affront to humanity and the very idea of character design. But I've got to say, it's not that bad. Now hold on, don't click off, stop writing that comment. Let me explain. The suit's not good, but the main problems people have with it are not related to the design. Those problems being, number 1, it's a story-based suit that comes out of nowhere in the story with no good explanation. Right when the symbiote invasion starts to get really bad, that's when Miles decides to get a new suit? Huh? What? Why? There's no build-up to it either. At no point in the story prior to that moment did Miles ever express any interest of any kind to get a new costume. So then he shows up with it, and the only explanation he gives is that
it's time for a Miles Morales original, you know? One of one.
Which doesn't even make sense. Wasn't his classic suit a Miles Morales original? Well, Genki helped make it, so I guess it wasn't entirely a Miles Morales original, and I'm assuming the same applies to his upgraded suit too. But even then, Miles, why was this the moment you decided to get an entirely original costume? Surely the alien invasion should take priority? All they needed to say was that this suit conducts his new blue electricity powers better. That's it. Mention it in one line of dialogue beforehand that the new powers are scuffing his suit a bit, and then have him show up later with this one. That's all they needed to do. Number 2, it's an advertisement. Adidas. That's the brand of the shoes so prominently featured on this costume. More than that, Adidas sells a top and pants that are designed to look like the suit, so the whole suit is an advertisement. Number 3, you are forced to wear the suit for the entire final mission. With New Game Plus, you can use whatever suit you want, but on a first playthrough, you are still forced to wear this during the final mission. So when you put these 3 problems together, you get a story-based suit that doesn't make sense for the story, that is actually an advertisement that you are forced to wear in the game's finale. With these issues, it's pretty obvious why people wouldn't like this costume. Hell, I don't like this costume. But when looking at the actual design of the suit, divorced from any of that, it's not that bad. Positives first. I like the color scheme. The red and blue are bright and vibrant, which is nice. I've already said that I'm not the biggest fan of Miles' default color scheme, but more importantly, I think it's a good idea for more of Miles' alternate costumes to stray away from it. Miles is a more recent creation and a legacy character, so I think a lot of artists are scared to shy away from Miles' typical color scheme in fear that it won't be recognizable as Miles Morales. But I think that's a mistake. Peter has a ton of suits that are not red and blue, so I think it's only fair that Miles gets more suits that are different from his traditional black and red. Another thing I like about this suit is the idea of these light blue sections running through the suit, almost like electricity going through his body. And that's it, time to be negative. An immediate issue the suit has is the shoes. Aside from the whole product placement thing, the shoes' white color makes them stand out too much, and they don't match the rest of the suit. Now, I'm sure that this was intentional. The shoes stand out because they are the costume's literal selling point, but it doesn't look right. The light blue sections aren't as good as they should be. I said I like the idea of them, but the execution could be improved, namely these bits on the pants. The section on his arms are formed out of the legs of his spider symbol, which looks cool, but these ones on the pants just start from nothing, which looks pretty awkward. If these bottom spider legs combine together to make the line on the pants, the same way the top legs form the line on the arms, then I think I'd like this a lot more. I think the reason they didn't do this was for the brand deal, so that the top and pants sold by Adidas would look better individually without needing to connect. Finally, there's the head. To make this headstock mask design work, you need a lot of hair and you need a cool hairstyle. Miles has neither. So yeah, the suit has problems, but I can see how they could be fixed. Match the color of the shoes to that of the suit. Make the bottom legs of the spider come together into the blue line running down his legs. Give him a better hairstyle. If you did all that, and gave it a better reason to exist in the story, then the suit would be good. But as it is, this suit is hard to like. I'd give it a 5.5 out of 10. Its alternate styles aren't much better. This one would be decent if it didn't have the gradient, this one would be decent if the eyes were red, and this one is probably my favorite because I think it's the one that best incorporates the shoes. But I think it needs more red on the suit before it could really be considered good because the suit feels too plain otherwise. And yeah, that's all I have to say about this costume. I know some people really hate this one because it ruins the story, but that's not a problem for me because I didn't like this game's story. I made a whole 2-hour video reviewing the game where I spent over an hour talking about just the story, so go watch that if you want to hear more of my thoughts on that matter. Moving on, the family business suit is based off of Aaron Davis's black iron spider suit. If you'll remember, Peter had a black recolor of his iron spider suit, which was based off the same thing. Miles' version is actually less similar to the comic book one, despite the fact that it's his comic books that the suit is being pulled from. The suit is too light of a black, the eyes are a different glowing design, and the suit constantly pulsates with yellow light. The only thing the suit does better than Peter's is retaining Aaron's more unique spider symbol. It's a shame since I like the typical iron spider design and I feel like this one simply isn't as good. I get that they didn't want to just copy Peter's version of the suit, but there has to have been a better way to do this. I think they should have made the suit simpler. Peter's iron spider suit is a lot more complex than its comic book counterpart, and this one could have been a return to the simpler style of the books. So I think they should have stripped it down and made it a more basic black metal suit, with only the eyes and the symbol being gold. Because in the comics, Aaron's suit is mostly drawn like that, omitting the gold parts on the arms and ankles. This version though, I don't know, man. For the recolors, the green one is ugly, the Prowler one is and the final one is a reference to a version of the iron spider suit Miles wore in the recent Carnage Reign story. I didn't like this outfit much in the comics since I felt the colors were a little weak and could probably use more red near the gold parts and more gold near the red parts, but it's clearly a more interesting design than Aaron's Iron Spider. I want to say, why didn't they just adapt this one instead of Aaron's, but this suit was created a few months before the game released, so they probably wouldn't have had the time to model it. The fact that it's even in the game as a recolor is impressive. Still, I don't really like it. The last thing I'll mention about this suit is that there's a chance to get unique finisher animations while wearing it, where Miles will use the iron spider legs. It took me a good half hour of fighting dudes to get these finishers, so I'd say they're quite rare. I'll give this suit a 6. It's an alright version of the iron spider suit, but it pales in comparison to Peter's. Next up is the tracksuit. To be honest, I've never liked this one that much. I was always confused by how popular the suit was, since I never thought the design was that strong. I think the area around his shoulders is a little weird. There's a web pattern you can barely see, like, why is that even there? It's mostly the additional white, which I feel is too loud and overpowering of a color on this costume. That's why I'm immensely grateful that this suit has a recolor that makes the suit entirely black and red. It looks so much better this way. There's another recolor that has Peter's colors, but I think it kinda sucks. My issue is that the symbol is gray/silver. Either make it white like the advanced suit or black like the classic one, but this gray in between is just ugly. The last recolor is just kind of funky. Overall, I'd give the suit an 8, but only because of the black recolor. The Brooklyn 2099 suit is an Insomniac original design, and it's alright. I don't like the red used here, it's kind of dull and pinkish. The design itself is just whatever. Looking at the alternate styles, we have this beauty. Holy, this thing is so much better than the original. The armor is a darker black, and with bright blue LEDs throughout the suit, it looks so sleek and futuristic. This is a perfect example of how a change in colors can bring something meh up to amazing. I won't even talk about the other recolors, they're dull and I have nothing to say about them. Getting back to my beautiful blue boy, I do have some issues with this suit. See, Miles' web wings are light up red by default, and these default web wings are used for this blue version of the suit. This doesn't match the suit's color scheme and it really bothers me. I get that Insomniac didn't want to change the web wing colors for every suit style, but at the same time, Why does Miles even have red web wings in the first place? Would it not have been easier to reuse Peter's clear wings? That way they could match basically every costume? Would anyone really have complained if Miles and Peter had the same wings? Another issue with this suit is that the lights on the suit will occasionally dim to the point where they practically turn off. I hate this. It would be tolerable if the lights dimmed a little to give a bit of a pulsating effect, but this is just too much. After going through the game some more, I think this might be a bug, because sometimes it'll do this, but sometimes the lights will only dim a little bit. There doesn't seem to be any consistency to it. Bug or not, it is something that happens and it really dissuades me from using this costume. Overall, I'd give the suit a 7.5. The default color scheme is mid as hell, and even though the blue version is really good, it is held back by some unfortunate issues. If they fix the wings and the dimming problem, then the blue version would honestly be my favorite suit for Miles in this game. The sportswear suit is a makeshift outfit Miles wore in the beginning of the solo game. If you've seen any of my other costume videos, then you already know what I think of this one. I don't like it. There's nothing wrong with it, it's just normal clothings with the Spider-Man mask, so I find it to be pretty lame. All the alternate styles give Miles his traditional black and red mask, with the last style being a reference to Miles' look in Into the Spider-Verse. Neat, but not something I care about. 5 out of 10. Next up is Miles' costume from Spider-Man Life Story, taken from the same issue that Peter's was. Fun fact, and spoilers for that book, but Miles in this issue is actually Otto Octavius. In a cool twist on Superior Spider-Man, Otto took Miles' body in that story instead of Peter's. So I guess I can blame him for this costume's flaws. I wrote notes for each suit so I could come back to them later and flesh things out, but the only thing I have written for this one is the single line, boring AF costume. And yeah, that about sums it up. The suit's just boring. Peter's at least had the asymmetrical web design and the thick metal boots and wrist pieces that matched the helmet, but this suit is just nothing. It's a weirdly retro outfit with a space helmet that feels slapped on. The second and third alternate color styles are okay, but the suit itself is so mediocre that they don't improve my opinion on it nearly enough to matter. 5 out of 10. The Miles Morales 2099 suit is taken from a variant cover. Considering that said cover doesn't do the best job showcasing the suit, I'd say that Insomniac did a very good job translating this design into a 3D model. The design itself is pretty cool, merging Miles' suit with Spider-Man 29's aesthetic in a way that feels natural. It's got good colors, a cool logo, and fog around the eyes? That's a little strange, but it looks neat. The purple recolor sucks, the white one is alright, but I don't like how it uses both a bright red and a darker red. It's especially noticeable on his shoes that are obnoxiously brighter than everything else. Just pick one shade of red, don't use both. The black and yellow one is pretty cool. I use this one with Peter's black and gold Iron Spider suit, and it's a nice combo. I'd give this one an 8. It's good. The advanced tech suit isn't very good. It's the definition of needlessly over-designed techno nonsense. That's not to say that it's bad, it's just something that I personally have no interest in. That being said, I think the white version of the suit is close to looking good. If it didn't have the glowing red web pattern from his shoulders up, then it would look a lot cleaner. The other two recolors are crap. 6 out of 10. The Shadow Spider's caped rogue aesthetic is quite unique. If you've seen my video on Ms. Marvel's costumes in Avengers, then you might remember her Mystic outfit. Well, this suit for Miles is from that same storyline, where the Champions team got placed into an alternate reality with their memories wiped, so Miles became the Shadow Spider. And I like it, the design's pretty cool. From the front, I think it's way too plain from behind. I really would have liked a spider symbol on the back there. The cape physics are a little weak, too. Looking at the recolors, these two suck, but this one's pretty good. It's a nice alternate that looks distinct without changing it too much. Really like how it makes the inside of the cape red. Overall, I'd give this one a 7.5 out of 10. I do like it, but as I said before, it is kind of boring from the back, which is what you're going to be seeing most of the time, so I don't like using it. The Miles Morales 2020 suit is another suit taken from a variant cover. So again, props to Insomniac for adapting something with so little source material. I like this one a lot. Cool helmet, cool lights, cool jacket. He's even got the cool S. The recolors are all just kinda alright. The one of the red jacket's not bad, but I don't think any of these are as good as the default. This one's a solid 8 for me. The Purple Rain suit is given to Miles by his Uncle Aaron in Miles' solo game. I don't like this one. It's obviously a Prowler-inspired Spider-Man suit, but I don't think it's Prowler-y enough. The best Prowler design is Hobie Brown's, which is at its best when it's allowed to be very exaggerated, with huge gauntlets, a huge cape, and big, sharp eyes. But this suit doesn't have any of that. Now that I'm looking at it, I think a big issue of the suit is how close it sticks to Aaron Davis's original Prowler design from the comics. That design wasn't ugly, it was just so damn boring. It didn't have the logo, the cape, the eyes, the gauntlets, nothing. I understand that they were going for a more modern spy suit that was sleek and slim, but it removes so much of Prowler's iconography that it ends up looking pretty lame. Honestly, all that suit needed was a symbol, more color, and better eyes. This design shares a lot of DNA with that one, and it fixes the logo and color problems, but not the eye one, as I think these are too small. But this costume also adds a utility belt and puny Prowler wrist pieces that get in the way of the sleek and compact design of Aaron's original Prowler suit. These pieces feel like an afterthought thrown in to give the suit more obvious Prowler stuff, but it doesn't work for me because of how small they are. I think the suit sits in a no man's land between ideas. Not as exaggerated as Hobie's design, not as compact and simple as Aaron's, and with just enough spider imagery to make sure you can tell it's a Spider-Man costume. The green and gray alternate style is ugly, the one with brighter colors is silly, and the last one is alright, but I feel like it would look better if it was black and not gray. Overall, I'd give this one a 6. The colors are good, but a lot of the smaller design elements don't come together for me. The Bodega cat suit is a popular costume for a reason. It's got a funny cat on the back, and that's all the suit has going for it. The outfit itself is pretty dull. The bodysuit is a different take on Miles' classic suit, which is surprising since they could have just reused the model of their classic suit with a hoodie over it, but they didn't. They made a unique suit model for this suit. Makes me kinda curious what it looks like underneath the hoodie. That being said, it's not a particularly interesting suit, because despite its differences, it's pretty much just Miles' classic suit with a hoodie over it. The only recolor that I think is decent is the one with the black hoodie. I think it's more fitting with that color. This and the green hoodie one give the cat a black and red Miles mask, which is pretty cool. I'd give this one a 7. The cat is funny, but the outfit itself is just kinda whatever. The Forever suit is based off a variant cover for Spider-Man's 60th anniversary. This suit's a weird one because I don't like the default version, but I really liked all the alternate styles. At first I didn't fully understand why, but after looking at the original inspiration for this suit, I think I figured it out. The design on the variant cover has a thin, messy web pattern throughout the suit, but Insomniac's version completely removes this, filling in the black of the suit with more MCU-inspired Wakandan patterning. This throws off the balance of the suit by removing too much of the Spider-Man design, so now it's like 90% a Black Panther costume. That's why I don't like the default version, since I think the bright red looks out of place on what is mostly a Black Panther suit. Conversely, this is why I like the other color styles more, since they look even more like Black Panther. The eyes were different in the original cover design, and their more normalized lens design in this game is both differently shaped and smaller, and I don't like them. I didn't know eyes this wide could look beady, but here we are. Another detail the original cover design had was a distinctly web-patterned boot that I really don't like, since I don't think it fits the rest of the suit. I'm glad Insomniac changed that. For the recolors, the all black one is a reference to Black Panther, the gold one is a reference to Black Panther, and the purple one is a reference to Black Panther. This suit is also cursed to keep Miles' default red web wings, which I think really clash with the gold and purple versions. Overall, I'd give this one an 8. This suit could easily be improved in many ways, but it still looks cool because it's based off of Black Panther. The homemade suit has a sort of weird origin. See, in the comics, Miles was originally from the Ultimate Marvel Universe, aka Earth 1610. In that universe, he had his own backstory of being inspired to take up Spider-Man's mantle after Peter's death. But then the 2015 Secret Wars happened and folded Miles and his supporting cast into the main Marvel Universe, aka Earth 616. And because of that, Miles' history was rewritten to be as though he'd lived in the 616 universe the whole time. So this suit is from the new, rewritten version of Miles' backstory. I think? I'm pretty sure that's what it is. This comic book stuff, it can get real messy and confusing sometimes. Anyway, the suit itself. I don't like it much. It's another homemade, scrapped together suit, and that's an aesthetic I've never liked. The recolors don't do anything to change my mind. I think the quasi-spider symbol is kinda interesting. I'd give this like a 5 or 6. Up next is Miles' suit from Into the Spider-Verse. I really like this suit. Miles making his own costume by spray painting over Peter's ties the two characters together while also showing their differences. It shows Miles' personality and interest by having him use his art skills to make his costume. The blue shading lightens the costume up a bit, the gray web pattern is a cool idea for Miles' costume. With all that said, I don't use this outfit much. If you saw my video on Peter's costumes in this game, then you might recall what I said about the Into the Spider-Verse noir suit. I thought its more stylized design and cartoon man proportions looked at odds with the game's intensely detailed world, and I'd say that the same applies here. I know this is definitely something people will disagree with me on. I'm sure this is not a problem at all for a lot of people, but it does bother me a bit. Still, I'd give it an 8 out of 10. Also, this suit and the other animated ones Miles has all use a unique web wing design, which is pretty cool. Next up is the Into the Spider-Verse SB suit. Does the SB stand for store-bought? I honestly have no idea, but that's my best guess. This is the suit he gets from Stan Lee at the costume shop, specifically with the cape that Peter B tears off after like 5 seconds. This is a fun and creative outfit, but I think you know what I'm gonna say. I don't like homemade looking costumes. I understand that it's the whole point, but it looks cheap and crummy. This is definitely a creative costume, but not one I like very much. 7 out of 10. The End suit is taken from an alternate continuity where Miles is one of the last remaining heroes in a dystopian super germ-riddled Earth. In that story, Miles' body was a different shape, so immediately they had to change that for the game. Outside of that is bang on to its original comic inspiration, so it's a shame I don't like this one. The design is just a little too casual for my taste. I also don't like the eyes. They looked fine in the stylized artwork of the book, but they look weird in this more realistic environment. The suit styles aren't great either. The white one would be pretty cool if the spider logo on the back was red, since I feel the suit is too white otherwise. I'd give this one a 6 or 7 out of 10. The 10th anniversary suit is a very divisive costume. I remember when I first saw this suit, I hated it. I thought it was almost insulting to have the character wear this as a celebration of his 10-year history. But over time, I've mellowed on it. I can totally see how people could love this one, but this suit's streetwear fashion style is something that I simply have no interest in. I respect this suit, but I don't like it. As for the colors, this suit is sometimes depicted as pink and sometimes depicted as red. From what I saw going through the comics to find pictures for the suit, it looks like it's pink on covers and red in interiors, so it's more often portrayed as red. This game has the pink version as the default color scheme, so I guess that's the one they're going with for the official coloration, but the red one is included as an alternate, which is great because it means everyone's happy. Personally, while I respect the pink one for doing something different, I do prefer the red one. The other two recolors are crap. Overall, I'd give this costume a 7 out of 10. Alright, so we're 20 suits in now, which means we're basically halfway through. If you've stuck around this long, then you should subscribe if you haven't already. Maybe check out some of my other stuff too. I mean, you've made it this far, you clearly like what I'm doing. Okay, let's keep moving. The programmable matter suit takes its name and construction from the programmable matter used by the Tinkerer in Miles' solo game. This suit's design is interesting, but I'm not a fan. I can't even concretely say why. I don't know if it's the walking disco ball aesthetic or the weirdly blocky design of the suit, but I just don't like it. I found something kind of interesting about this costume when doing research for this video. I found this image, which I think is from the art book for Spider-Man Miles Morales. In a text blurb, the suit is called the Advanced Suit. It's also described as fitting the neon lights of New York City, and I don't agree with that. This suit looks a lot more advanced than what you'd see in New York City, even in Insomniac's more sci-fi stylized version of it, so I wouldn't describe it as fitting. Also, on this page, Miles' classic suit is labeled as the Iconic Suit, which is weird both because that's not the name it has in-game, and also because Iconic Suit was the label used for the main canon suits in Marvel's Avengers. Coincidence? Or something more? Anyway, getting back to the costume formerly known as the Advanced Suit for some reason, it also has mechanical spider arms in some of its finishers. Neat. The alternate colors are all alright. I'd give the suit a 6 or 7. The Strike suit is a returning costume from Spider-Man Miles Morales. I like this suit a lot in that game, and it was one of the main suits that I used there. However, in this game, I don't like it as much. I'm not exactly sure why. I like the design of the suit. I like the very anime bulky gauntlets. I like the collar, the bright colors, the energy flowing throughout the suit that mimics Miles' own bioelectric powers. That's part of the problem right there. The yellow energy coursing through the suit perfectly matched Miles' powers in his game, but it doesn't match his new blue electric abilities in this game. While you can set all your abilities back to the yellow ones, the blue electricity is still present in Miles' finisher animations and his parry. That's why I'm completely baffled by how none of the recolors incorporate blue lights in the suit. None of the recolors are that great, honestly. Another thing that might be restricting my enthusiasm for the suit is that Peter doesn't really have something that matches this one. Many of Peter's armored suits from the first game failed to return for the sequel, and he didn't get any new ones. At least not any good new ones. So because of this, I feel like I don't want to use the suit because it clashes with Peter's aesthetic too much. I'll give it a 7. I did really like this suit in Miles Morales, and I would have given it an 8 in that game, but because of the things I previously mentioned, I'll drop it down. The Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. suit is a neat reference to this cover with Miles in a S.H.I.E.L.D. uniform. It's a pretty cool suit. Seeing S.H.I.E.L.D. referenced and embodied in this way is a fun change-up from most of the other stuff you see in Spider-Man games. The default color scheme is closer to the classic S.H.I.E.L.D. uniform, with a black version that's closer to the modern S.H.I.E.L.D. uniforms. There's a gray and red one that's alright, and a white and gold one that sucks. I definitely think this suit is over-designed. It's not too bad on the bodysuit, but the gloves and boots are so... ugh. Come on, they do not need all this junk on them. You could have added a realistic level of detail to these things without having to do this. I'll give this one a 7. It's pretty cool, but I don't find myself using it much. The Great Responsibility suit is two things at once. Within the Insomniac continuity, it's the suit Peter gifts to Miles as his first real super suit. The suit is also an adaptation of the Halloween costume Miles first wore in his earliest appearances. Insomniac's rendition makes some changes, such as the addition of shoes and a back logo, but it is still an adaptation of the suit from the books. I've seen some people say that because of its different origin and slight differences in design, that this suit is not comparable to the comic version and should be treated as an Insomniac original. I strongly disagree with that. Hardly any of the suits in these games are one-to-one recreations, which is completely fine and understandable, and there are suits that are just as different, if not more so, to their comic counterparts than this suit is, yet those are treated as faithful adaptations, so why isn't this one? Rant over, time to talk about the suit itself. It's pretty mid. That's to be expected. It's supposed to be a crummy starter suit that the character grows out of. My biggest issue with the suit is how dull it is from behind. The added logo helps, but it's still pretty small, and without a belt or proper boots, the suit's kinda bare from the back. The alternate styles all have some kind of weird color issue. The white one doesn't fully commit to that color for red logo and shoes. The black and red one's back logo is too dull, so it fades into the suit, and the other black and red one is just too much red from behind. Overall, I'd give the suit a 5. It's a neat reference to the books, I understand its purpose within the character's history in this continuity, but I also have no interest in ever wearing it. Across the Spider-Verse's new suit for Miles is a pretty divisive one. A lot of people don't like it because it's too simple, and it follows up the Into the Spider-Verse suit, which was really good. I like this suit though. I think it looks good, and I think it has enough detail in its design. Within the context of the movie, this is an animated suit made for an animated world, so it's going to look good within that context, or within worlds with less detailed art styles like Fortnite. But here, I don't know. Just like the suits from the first movie, I think this one looks a little out of place in this game. A little. I still think it looks cool, and I'll have to agree with what PSM said about this suit's additional armor plating. If it was any more visible, I'd have to knock it down a point or two. 8 out of 10. The Crimson Cowl suit. Never liked this one much. I think it's very boring. The suit looks okay from the front, but then you look at the back and there isn't really a spider on it. There's like a coffin-shaped hexagon with lines coming out of it, and I don't like that. I don't think it's as cool as the spider symbol would be. And that's pretty much all the back has. Outside of that, it's just a ton of red. And since you'll be seeing it from the back most of the time, I'd say this is a pretty significant problem. The black and red recolor would be good if it didn't have that second darker red on it. Pick one shade of red, don't use both. The other two recolors are definitely there, and that's all I have to say about them. Okay, so I was doing research, and the Crimson Cowl is a moniker used by several Marvel characters. Ultron actually used the name for a bit, so this suit was maybe loosely inspired by the concept of that character. Anyway, I'll give this one a 5. The Best There Is suit is based off a what-if story that asked the question, what if Miles Morales was Wolverine? That question doesn't have a very interesting answer. It's pretty much just normal Wolverine stuff, but Sabretooth is now Miles' Uncle Aaron, and Miles' dad, Jefferson Davis. Bendis, why did you name him that? He's there too. He dies. And then Professor X shows up, and it's Genki? And it's not even like he's Genki Xavier. No, he's still Genki Lee. But then why are they called the X-Men? Why aren't any of them like mixed in with another Miles Morales supporting character? Why does Miles Vereen have 4 claws on each hand? It doesn't matter. The suit in the game is alright. There's basically zero Spider-Man DNA in here, which is understandable since this is supposed to be a Wolverine costume. The mask completely covers Miles' face, which is also understandable because it saves them the trouble of having to animate Miles' mouth. This default version is the weakest in my opinion because the red colors don't look great on a Wolverine suit. Fortunately, this is a suit saved by its recolors. I'm personally not that big a fan of the yellow and brown Wolverine costume. What can I say, mustard and poop isn't the best color scheme, but it's pretty good here since the brown is on the jacket and jackets are brown, so I find the colors to be more fitting. The gray X-Force one is alright, I guess, and then there's the peak yellow and blue, the best Wolverine design. It even has the stripes on the side. The suit is a 9 because while the default is mid, the recolors really make this the best there is. The Dark Ages suit comes from the comic of the same name, where Miles is bonded to both the Venom and Carnage symbiotes at the same time. You might think this sounds super cool, but the story did basically nothing with this idea. This suit is a pretty great adaptation of its source material, which is great because I really like the design of the suit. I like the spiked hoodie, the symbol, the shoes. As far as I'm concerned, this is the definitive symbiote suit design for Miles. All of my issues with this suit are minor, but together they are enough to sink it for me. First, I think the red is a bit too dark. It recedes into the black too much when it should be popping out. Secondly, the texture this suit uses doesn't match any of Peter's symbiote costumes. It's not as grotesque as Peter's symbiote suit, it doesn't have the armor padding of the modern black suit, and it's not as simple as the classic black suit. Hey, editing Dorito God here. I noticed while putting this together that I omitted the Black Raimi suit and the Anti-Venom suit from this comparison, so I'll acknowledge that now to prevent people from incessantly pointing it out in the comments. Let's be real here, the Black Raimi suit is mostly just the normal Raimi suit painted black, so it doesn't have that much of a symbiote vibe to it and it completely slipped my mind here. The Anti-Venom suit actually does have a similar texture to Miles' Dark Age suit. The black recolor in particular decently matches it. This one slipped my mind because I really don't like its design. The more time has passed, the less charitable I've become towards it. So I should have said Peter doesn't have any good symbiote suits that match this one. Thirdly, I think these colored veins are unnecessary. I think the suit already had a cool design, and the texture they gave it was enough extra detail, so it doesn't need these. Put all that together, and I don't want to use this one much. For its recolors, of course there's a Carnage one, of course there's an Anti-Venom one, seems to be mandatory on these symbiote suits. Then you have this orange one that might be based off of this one cover where the suit is colored a little more like that. I think it's downright criminal that there's no black and white variant when the suit had one in the comic books. Overall, I'd give this one a 7. It's still a fairly good suit, but it's held back by some strange decisions. Next up is the Absolute Carnage suit. This suit is taken from a storyline that wasn't finished. Like you can see on the page I'm using here for comparison, it says to be continued, but the story just ends there. To be continued where?
You didn't finish!
Anyway, to discuss the suit itself, I don't like it at all. I don't like the tendrils coming out of the suit. If they actually moved around, that'd be one thing, but they're completely static and I think that looks kind of cheap. I know people will say, but that would be too difficult to do. But like, the symbiote enemies in the game already have this, so. The web pattern on the suit looks like Miles got caught in a fishing net, and he's got toes. Ew. I don't care for any of the recolors, and I will give this thing a 2. It's not a 0 because it's not the ugliest thing I've ever seen, and maybe other people find something to like about this suit, but for me personally, I see no reason to ever use this costume. The King in Black suit is another suit taken from a variant cover. There's a lot of weird stuff going on with this one. First of all, why is this unlocked by completing all the symbiote nests? That's something that both Spider-Men can do, so why does only Miles get a reward for it? And with Peter's anti-venom debuff, it's better to do this activity with him, so why does Miles get a reward for it? Looking at the design, and let me be clear, I'm referring to the original comic book one, he has fabric wraps around his forearms. Why? This is a symbiote suit made of living black space goo, so why does it give him cloth wraps? Several characters who actually were converted to Null's side in the story had a similar design on their arms, but it looked more like thicker symbiote material and not cloth. I don't know why the artist decided to draw it like that. I don't like that Insomniac kept it. Another thing I don't vibe with is how the suit isn't consistent with its texture. Most of the suit is symbiote slime, but the web pattern part on the top is normal fabric. Why? Something this version omits from the comic design is the symbiote's mouth. While I understand that they didn't want to keep this because the open mouth would look weird in cutscenes, I do think they could have worked around it. If they made the mouth fixed into a closed smile, I think that would have looked better. In fact, that would have been enough to make me want to actually use this costume. All the recolors are bad. Overall, I'd give this one a 4. It's got some confusing design choices, and the omission of the mouth cements it as a pretty uninteresting costume. The Boricua suit shows Miles as half Puerto Rican heritage. That's cool, but I don't know. The design's kinda... It's practically just Miles' normal costume with the Puerto Rican flag slapped onto it. I mean, there's gotta be a more interesting way to incorporate the flag than this, right? All the recolors are pretty bleh, too. Sorry if I don't have a more eloquent breakdown on this one, but the suit's simply not interesting enough to warrant anything else. I'll give it a 6, it's fine. The Smoke and Mirrors suit is the Mysterio-based design you get from completing the Mysterio side mission. As a Mysterio-inspired costume, this suit completely fails. It doesn't incorporate Mysterio's quilt pattern, which is unfortunate, but understandable because Insomniac's Mysterio design doesn't have it either. What's not understandable is the omission of the mystic eyes that are synonymous with Mysterio. Doubly so here because in this game they serve as the symbol for Mysterio's challenge missions. The only aspects of the suit that say Mysterio are the helmet and the color scheme. There's a recolor that swaps the green and purple, a red and black one, and then there's this one. This white and gold suit is maybe my favorite suit for Miles in this game. Cool design, reminds me of the White Tiger Ranger. Sleek. I'd give this suit a 9. And I specifically mean the white one when I say that, because the default version of this I'd give like a 1. It's a very lame costume that does almost nothing to emulate Mysterio's design. However, it's also this very lack of commitment to Mysterio that allows the white recolor to look so cool. Also, this suit doesn't have expressive eyes. I thought that since the eyes aren't physical objects and are just shapes within the cloudy helmet, that they'd be easier to move around, but I guess not. The Most Dangerous Game suit is the exact same costume as Peter's Last Hunt suit. I don't want to waste your time, so I'll quickly reiterate the same things I said in that video. Kraven's design completely overpowers Spider-Man's, it has a dull color scheme, and bad recolors. I'm legitimately shocked this is the only suit that both Peter and Miles share. 3 out of 10. The City Sound suit is the one you get from completing the Music Museum side quest. I don't typically like costumes made out of typical clothing items, but this one's so dapper that I actually kinda like it. I think part of the reason why is that the outfit does a good job of keeping Spider-Man's typical imagery. The shoes and shirt have the web pattern, the vest has good symbols on the front and back. It's not Spider-Man in normal clothes, it's Spider-Man in appropriately styled clothes. Slight, yet important distinction there. I think all the recolors are pretty bad though. Honestly shocked they didn't go for a typical red and blue one. I'll give this one a 7. I don't use it much, but I do respect it. With that, we've covered all the base game costumes. Moving on to the Deluxe Edition suits, we have the Encoded suit. This suit was designed by Chris Anka, the man behind many of the designs in Across the Spider-Verse, which I love, but I am pained to say that I don't love this costume. I do like it, it's among the better Deluxe Edition suits, but it's not quite there. I like the futuristic armor design, I like the glowing yellow bits, I even like the completely non-functional ripcords because they add a good amount of color to the outfits, but I don't like the little peg thing sticking out of the suit, and I think my biggest issue with the costume is the colors. Either get rid of the red and make it entirely yellow and orange so the suit's color scheme is simpler, or add more red because as it is, I don't think the suit has enough. I'd give this thing a 7. I think the suit is pretty good, but I'd personally change some things about it. Next up is the biomechanical suit. This suit has an interesting idea. It's clearly based off the organic armor seen in a lot of anime and manga. The most obvious one would be Guyver, but I feel like I've seen other anime characters with similar designs. So I do think this outfit is interesting, but I don't personally like it too much. As much as I love Spider-Man, I actually hate bugs. So this more organic, fleshy design is a bit too creepy and weird for me. I also think the logo on the back should glow like the one on the front does because it kind of disappears into the other black armor pieces on the back. I'd give this one a 7. The Tokusatsu suit is, in my opinion, the best Deluxe Edition suit and the only one that I really use. That goes for both characters, by the way. The Tokusatsu genre, from which this suit takes its name, is Japanese media that uses a lot of practical effects and guys in suits to portray big monsters and stuff. At least, that's my understanding of it, so Godzilla, Power Rangers, Ultraman, all of that is Tokusatsu. So of course I'm gonna like this suit because all that stuff is right up my alley. The design of the suit is very similar to a lot of different Power Ranger designs, which already makes this suit a winner. I like the black and red, I like the protruding shoulders, and I like the lights. but it's not perfect. I think the color of the fabric section is too light. It's more of a grayish color when I feel it would look a lot better if it was a more solid black. I also don't like the ridges on the fabric section. The vertical red lines crossing through them looks weird to me. There's a piece of concept art for the suit without the ridges on the fabric, and I think that looks a lot better. The fingers have little claws on them, and I don't understand why. I don't think they look that great, and most Power Ranger suits don't have claws, so why does this one? And lastly, my biggest issue with the suit is how the lights look at night. During the day, they're a nice vibrant red, but at night, the red washes out completely and the lights become white with a red glow. I'm sure someone will comment, but that's realistic to how red lights work, or something, and look, man, I do not care if it's realistic. It doesn't look good. Because of how lighting dependent the suit is, I don't use it that much. 8 out of 10. This is still a very good costume that personally resonates with me, but it could use some tweaks to make it better. The Agimat suit has parts that I like. I like the gold and purple color scheme, I think that looks cool. It's a very different suit compared to all the other stuff Miles has. I like the gold armbands, but the suit has problems. The spider on the front is too thin. The suit would look better if it were a darker purple like in the concept art. And the biggest thing that damns the suit is the feet. Why does the suit have toes, man? Just giving him shoes or boots of some kind with some gold on them would have been enough to make me reconsider this costume and overlook the other issues with it, but the toes completely ruin it for me. I'd give the suit a 4. The final deluxe edition suit is the Red Spectre, which is a suit I really don't like. I've seen a few people say that this is a better version of the Evolved suit, to which I would respond, what the hell are you talking about? I'm not kidding, I think the suit is way worse than the Evolved suit. Problematic as that suit was, I can at least understand why it looks the way it does. I can't say the same for the Red Spectre. Everything about this suit feels so haphazardly combined into something that I genuinely cannot wrap my head around. I think it's got a lot of over-design going on. The body has too many different sections. You got red, grayish black, a darker black, and then this like laminated section with a web pattern. It has a gradient on the arms and only the arms. It's got cartoony red clown shoes that are so big they clip through the ground, and then you get to his head. He's wearing a mask and a scarf face mask on top of that, and he's wearing a hood, but he still has a stupid little hole cut out the top of his mask for his hair to poke out of, and it's so... This whole suit, it's so dumb. All the other deluxe edition suits, I could understand what they were going for, but this one, I genuinely don't know what the intention was. Despite all that negative stuff I just said, I can't say that I hate this suit. I like that it's colorful, it has a very unique design. I think a stripped down version of the suit that was more focused could work. But as it is, I'd give the suit like a 5. Even with all of its issues, at least it's not boring. The Fresh suit is Miles' costume from the Fresh and Fly pack. While it does have a different design than Peter's, they share the same aesthetic that I am not at all interested in, so they might as well be the same. I also don't have this one because I am not paying $5 to look like the floor of a 90s arcade. 5 out of 10, because it isn't quite ugly, it's just a style I don't care for at all. Our last costume is Miles' Hellfire Gala suit. Fun fact number 1, Miles does not actually wear this outfit to the gala because it gets destroyed before he can get there. Fun fact number 2, in universe, this suit and the 10th anniversary suit were created by the same character, Kenny Kingston. I mention that partially because it's an interesting piece of lore, and because this information is not listed on the Marvel Wiki. Kingston's page only describes their first meeting with Miles and nothing else, so yeah, get to it, Wiki guys. The suit in the comics was a very stylish combination of formal wear and Spider-Man iconography, which Insomniac has faithfully recreated here. This is one of the most accurate recreations of a comic book costume in this game, which is great because I really like this outfit. The colors, the logos, the fact that the suit isn't covered in a bunch of unnecessary junk. It's good. The only difference from its comic appearance is the head. The mask comes up too high and Miles retains his default hairstyle instead of the shorter one he had in the books. It's definitely a little weird, but it's not a huge issue. The rest of the suit looks so good that I don't even really notice this part. Unfortunately, the suit does have other issues unrelated to the comic book stuff. If you do the slingshot launch on a perch point, then Miles' coat will clip into his body for a bit. And then there's his web wings. The day this suit was released with the New Game Plus update, I used it and the web wings were blue. I thought this was strange since Miles' default wings are red, so why would they go out of their way to give him different web wings that don't match the suit? Then there was that smaller update afterwards that removed debug mode, and I used the suit after that and the web wings were red. Okay, great, they fixed it. Then I kept playing, I switched to Peter, and then back to Miles, and then when I did, the wings were blue again. I reloaded my checkpoint and the wings went back to red, and they've stayed red in all my playtime since then. I don't know, maybe I did something obscure that screwed them up and this isn't a common issue, but I had to mention it. Neither of these two things are that big of a deal, and I'd ultimately give this suit a 9 out of 10. And that's all of them. Here's my tier list for all of Miles' suits. Generally, I'd say that Miles has a better selection of costumes than Peter does. Part of this is that Miles doesn't have an overabundance of largely redundant live-action suits. Part of it is that Miles doesn't have two different types of abilities that are ill-fitting for 90% of his costumes. And another part of it is how Miles' comic book costumes are translated here. They're all quite faithful, and even the ones with added detail don't tend to go as overboard as Peter's do. If I had to posit a theory as to why this is, I think that Insomniac might have felt pressured to make their versions of Peter's comic costumes different so that they'd stand out from the many different other games that had already adapted them. But because Miles is a more recent character who has rarely had his alternate outfits adapted into anything, they tried to stay a bit more faithful because there was no pressure to be different and stand out. But that's just a theory. Also, I don't think any of Miles' outfits suffered any issues from being ported from his game into this one, unlike some of Peter's. While I do like a lot more of Miles' suits, I hardly love any of them. I think this is mostly because I don't love Miles as a character, especially Insomniac's version since he's such a cornball, so I don't play as him much. Maybe this has resulted in me being more lenient with him compared to how strict I was with Peter. And with that, I think I've said my piece. Once again, there's a link in the description that you can use to make your own tier list ranking. Remember to like the video, subscribe, argue in the comments, and ring that bell so that I can see you next time.